Okay. Good morning. Lot of icky stuff going on right now on Facebook, out there in the environment, and in other countries. A lot of icky stuff going on. And, I know when I've matured, when I see posts that now that I look at them, I would never agree with what they're saying, like ever. And it even comes off as just so inflammatory and so offensive. And I still won't unfriend them. I won't even shoot back at them on their Facebook. I look at it and it then inspires me to talk about what I talk about, because I know I can't change people's minds. You can't convert people that refuse to be converted. Not that should be anyone's intention to convert people. People are who they are. And this system has been trying to figure out how to get people to get along, how to control people from destroying things that are different to them. How do you get people to accept other people's differences, regardless of what differences they are? How do you get people to be tolerant, to be open, to be productive? How do you get people to be amazing human beings? Well, you can't force them to be that way. And you have to get them when they're kids. You can't convert an adult who's been raised around violence and intolerance and racism and all the different isms to finally say, okay, well, I'm going to now throw away everything I've ever learned and take on your idea because it's just so fucking wonderful. You'll never see an adult just change like that. You'll never see that. It must happen, and not even through self-help groups. Because even if you brainwash somebody for a short amount of time or even a long period of time after they've been brainwashed in something else, they still have those residual memories in their body. They might intellectually understand sort of where you're coming from. But as their body deteriorates, and the new information doesn't have a long enough time to embed itself into that person's psyche, the new information of tolerance and all that goes to the wayside. It gets destroyed through life, and then the person's core, the foundation they were brought up under, comes to surface. That's why cures are temporary. That's why self-help groups are temporary, unless you actually change out your biochemistry systematically. So you can face those memories of destruction and intolerance and hatefulness. You can face that and come to terms with that, and then develop new memories of tolerance and, diversity and all that. And so right now you're seeing in our society how human sacrifice has been embedded in families. Okay? You've already accepted human sacrifice. What happened in 9/11? Yeah, it was human sacrifice, and you can speculate where it originated from. Doesn't even matter at this point. You can speculate what's going on over there in the Middle East as something as, like a type of human sacrifice. Who started it, who did it, who developed it, it doesn't even matter. It's happening. Human sacrifice happens in the hospital system. Human sacrifice happens in families. When you're taking your loved ones to get oncology, taking the herbal remedies, taking all the different surgeries, that's human sacrifice. People accept that all over the place. They embed that in their culture. They have the blood of Christ all over them. They have the blood of something all over them. They give their animals to the veterinary system to be sacrificed. Okay? Human sacrifice is not new. It's just the types of human sacrifice and who gets to do it and how regulated it is. That's what the medical holistic energy healing world, it's a regulated human sacrifice that people accept. And then when it happens like that, in one instant, like a 9/11 or a 10/9 or 10/8 or whatever, then they're like, oh my God, yeah, it's the rate of human sacrifice you're having an issue with. You liked it when it was drawn out so you can, have fun during that time of slow death. But you still accepted it. You still disrespected life. Life was still a commodity to people and to you. And so what's going on right now over there in the Middle East, 9/11, every other war that we've ever been in was a faster rate of human sacrifice that you've already accepted at a slower rate within your community, within your family, of dying and reproducing and using all the different alchemy and the surgeries and all of that, and the unsafe practices out there, just risking your life because you can, because life is just doesn't mean much to people. And so, we've already accepted that. And so that's why I'm like, well, you guys already accept death anyway. So what is your issue with what's going on? What is your issue? You've already put yourself in the medical system. You already put yourself in the holistic system. You already have taken so many aggressive concoctions against your immune system. You're already protecting yourself against life. So what's the issue here? Oh, it's the rate of death now is not acceptable to you. Well, hey, you've been warned we're going into climate change. You already accepted the slow death. Now, okay, the system's like, okay, we've had enough of this. Now we're going to accelerate the RPMs. And now you either figure out you put up or shut up, one of the two. But every society has a segment of the population that will be sacrificed voluntarily and involuntarily. It sucks. But those who have passed away from a mass sacrificial type of situation, you hope they didn't suffer too much on their way out the door. I can't even say if it's right or wrong because people choose to get oncology. They choose to get surgeries and butcher themselves and their families. When you already do not cherish life, what's going on right now should be of no surprise. If you already accept death, why are you even surprised about what's going on? So listen to the indicators. Maybe respect life and your own and get out of harm's way. Be thankful you weren't mass sacrificed. Maybe it's time to stay home and stay safe. Maybe understand the world that I live in as far as the J world, and be thankful you're getting a second chance at life if you even can wrap your mind around my information, which most people cannot. And so they will sacrifice their friends, their family, themselves, their children, because that's what they were taught to do, and that's what they've accepted for so many years. They accepted it at a slower rate, so it didn't mean too much until the system accelerated the atmosphere. And now what you've already accepted is coming to fruition faster. It is now tomorrow. Today is tomorrow. Today is the day. Today is tomorrow of what you feared, what you were warning people about. And so, no matter what, when the system develops situations, whether it was an organic situation, that somebody had hate in their heart and they developed a situation where they developed things that happened and people died from it, or somebody staged it because it was already in the population. That's like an immunization. When you already have it, but somebody preempted, when you already have the potential to make antibodies, but someone preempted the situation, that's called protection, right? That's the V's. That's no different than what the system is doing out there, whether it's something that's contrived and synthetic or something that's organic. It already exists in the population. There's hate in the population. There's diverse people who hate other people in the population. People have already been radicalized against a person, place, or thing or idea. And so the medical system and the holistic system both develop scenarios that would happen anyways, because a person only knows one of two ways to do things. Systematically take their life away until there's nothing left. But then I'm introducing something completely different. So if given the opportunity, you would act on your impulses if the law or somebody else didn't stop you. Civilized societies use the words and the laws of the society to air out their differences. Uncivilized societies use violence against the people who they don't agree with. And so if the system has to develop a scenario, and you'll never know if it's contrived or organic or anything, that would happen anyways. If given the opportunity, then that's a controlled defense of provocation from 6,000 years ago. Because let's just go all the way back to freaking 6,000 years ago. Maybe even more, 10,000. I just say 6,000 because that's kind of the going number that a lot of different religions refer back to, is 6,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. But 6,000 is a nice round number. If you have hate in your heart, if you have hate against any person, place, or thing, if you're not bothering to understand the other side of the story, the system will give you enough rope and you know the rest. Those who are intolerant, you're showing your cards on Facebook. You are showing your cards on Facebook and you don't even realize it. Okay, I've seen people talk about what's going on, anti-SEMITE, and I'm not going to say the actual word because there's a lot of baggage with that. And I even was kind of playing around with that type of stuff where I was questioning certain things that may have happened in the past. And it really, I'm sure, it pissed my mother off because, yes, I was raised Jewish. But it's something that I had to explore. And I entertained a lot of different people who felt the same way or felt the way like, oh, they were questioning history, questioning the numbers, questioning this and saying that and da, da, da. And I mean, I was raised around learning about the Holocaust. I was raised around learning about pogroms in Russia, Ukraine. I was raised around all of that. And I still had to question it. Because if you don't explore every single fucking argument, how are you going to position your final conclusion if you ever even get there? Some people explore arguments and they stay in just one argument. Okay? And so, you know, I had to explore those arguments of questioning things of the past and even entertaining people like that who are intolerant. And then I look at my position, even the J world, because this was like even during the J world or maybe before, probably before the J world, yes, because I've been doing the conspiracy world ever since 2012. And so the J world gave me a larger window to look through. And I finally had put myself in the position of those who have been persecuted by people who don't like them or think or believe a story about them. And so when you're sitting in a world of being persecuted by everybody or the majority of the population, then you start seeing things a little bit differently. Oh, I saw things very differently the last 7 years. And so then when I look back on what I was raised with, and then looking at what's going on right now in the Middle East, and looking at that here, I'm in Ohio, I'm in America, was naturalized. I didn't have to be here, but I was brought here. Somebody paved the way for me. I ain't going back to Vietnam. But I've dealt with racism out here. People telling me go back to, they calling me, Charlie, telling me to go back to Vietnam, or just, you know, all the different types of people. And I'm like, hey, were you originally from here? Are you Native American? And if you're Native American, are you the original people, or were you a mixture of all the different ones that came through from other places? I mean, where does it fucking end as far as original, you know, colonies and whatever? I mean, it gets really sticky when you're trying to figure out who originally deserves to be here and where does evolution come from. I mean, like, look, just because you have a cell in your body that's so basic and so like not very evolved and innovated, do you really want to go back to being a caveman? That was the original, a caveman. You want to go back to hunting and gathering, sitting in a fucking cave, grabbing women by their hair and dragging them with a club? If you really want to go back to the original inhabitants of a land and the original prototype of a human, you want to be a monkey? No, you didn't just all of a sudden just come from some magical being that was just given intelligence. No, you had to learn the things even as a baby. If you weren't given the society that you have, if you weren't given the information that you have, if you weren't born in the society that you're in, you wouldn't have the information that you have. You wouldn't have the knowledge. You wouldn't have any of the gifts that were given to you. Just look at those that didn't have access to education and access to innovation and access to so many things. They're suffering from lack of knowledge. Their basic instincts. Screw everything and be violent. And some societies are like that. They screw everything, so they're predators. They get everything pregnant, and they're violent. That's basic instinct. I think mankind obviously can be a little bit more civilized than that, though we have a mixture of both civilized and trying to control our basic instincts, but it's not, it hasn't been doing very well with that, because now we have the Me Too movement and we have the Epstein book and all that. So now we're doing a great reset because basic instinct is coming back and people are violent and they're screwing everything. All right. So anyways, so I was letting you know that I've evolved and I've kept people on my Facebook that I see that are so intolerant, because I understand where they're coming from. They can't get out of their own way. They're just inspiring me to now be more, I guess, clearing my own thought process and maybe even, facing the demons that I developed the last 12 years in the conspiracy world and coming to terms with them. And so those who are intolerant, you're showing your cards on Facebook. You are showing your cards on Facebook and you don't even realize it. Some people are very capable of violence if given the opportunity. Some people just spout off. You saw the capability of violence on January 6th. And now we're seeing people's true colors around what's going on in the Middle East. No matter what, if you don't value life, if you don't value your own life, if you don't value other people's lives at all because they don't look like you or act like you or you believe the story, the system won't persecute you, but they will give you every opportunity and tool to persecute yourself. Okay? And so if you're smart, that's where the whole jail will release those fucking demons of intolerance and trauma. And you feed your mind the other side of the story. Actually intend to understand the other person's story, the other argument. If you're smart, if you're smart enough to understand what's going on, you could save yourself. You could save yourself. Fuck, I hate these talk to text. If you're smart enough to understand what's going on, you could save yourself. But if you're dumb enough to be so obvious about how intolerant you are, not understanding the other story, you'll destroy yourself because you're that intolerant. And so that's what's going on. You're seeing those, I'm seeing those I used to hang out with and talk about stuff and be an activist. I'm looking at them through a very different pair of eyes. And it's quite concerning to see that type of hatred. That's what happened during World War II. The people on my Facebook who are that radicalized against what's going on. And of course, they're not going to understand what's going on because they don't understand that they are the reason why things are the way they are. They have reincarnated the hatred. They have and the hatred and the intolerance. But I had to see it. I had to hang out with it. Oh, and when you look at it from a different point of view, when you finally release those demons, you understand why the system is doing what it's doing, why it has done what it's done. And you're like, holy crap. But that's what rampant fertility does. Because people program people to be so destructive. To be so narrow. And you know how humans are, when we want something, we put out all the stops until somebody stops us. And so when fertility is in, like it has been, immortality is out. People then just act on the programming that was forced on them as a child. That was forced on them from their community, from the system, from their family, from their culture, their politics, religion, science. And so when immortality is in, then fertility will be out because you won't be fertile. You'll be doing mitosis. You'll be, what is it? Lengthening your telomeres, mitosis, based upon the blueprint of your body. You're not going to be developing so much infection. You're not going to be developing so many cancers and disease. You'll be eating all food. You'll be releasing those darn demons that do get developed in your colon because fornication always happens whenever you're out there in the public with something that is antigenic. Antigen antibody programming. You're always exposed to antigen. Doesn't mean it's poison. It's just something that's different than your body, and then it must engage in some kind of chemical reaction, and then an offspring is developed. Sometimes that offspring is very influential, and so you might cough, sneeze, and blow your nose. But if you don't release those little offspring and they metastasize or they replicate, because that's how cells do when they are allowed to flourish in a nice environment, it replicates, and then it turns into infection, disease, and then also cause fertility. It alters your immune system to the point of where your immune system is so altered and so damaged that it develops a baby. Oh my God, that's why the system talks about children as demons. That's why the vampires talk about, we don't want to have children vampires because they can't control their powers. Okay, allegory is everything. And so that's when the kids that exist today must release the demons in their body of offspring. And they have to become whole people. And that means they need all the food in the food supply, and they have to find a way to deal with the disease and get ahead of it with the food supply and release those demons simultaneously. And some kids don't have what it takes. Some kids do. And I couldn't tell you who, because I don't know your background. You don't even know your background, really. The medical system is going to have to assist you. Okay? And so when fertility is in, immortality is out. But when immortality is in, fertility is out, and then they'll be developing lab-created babies or artificial wombs. So that way, that kid gets programmed relative to the intention of the society. They don't have so much trauma from the background as far as gestation. And that baby gets all the nutrients, and it doesn't get all the crazy drugs. They take the egg and the sperm from extremely balanced or some kind of balanced prototype that has specific programming to give them a platform, a predisposed gift. And then they foster that child in that artificial womb, and then probably even once it becomes an actual baby, then it gets cuddled by some kind of mother type figure, whatever, and then it gets raised in a specific society. And then you don't get all the bullshit in the background. You don't get drug addicted babies. You don't get babies that have so much trauma in the background. Somebody is controlling reproduction wisely. Because look at your community. When you're afraid to walk out at night because you're afraid to get raped or mugged, or someone stealing your shit, that's what we've developed in our society. When our jails are so full of men and women who can't control their urges, when we have so many agencies and pharmaceuticals and herbal remedies to control the life in their body and in their house and in their community, you know we've allowed fertility and reproduction to get so out of hand. And you can't talk to people because they don't understand. They don't have what it takes up here to understand. You can't make someone understand something that they have no capacity to fucking understand. So in the future, we will save the women from the destruction of fertility. We will save her from the enslavement. Men will still be useful, but they need to calm down their hormones. Hypersexuality in all genders develops predators and victims. And so the antigen antibody programming not only gives you the different blood types and Rh factors, but also for the propensity of infection. Okay? Fertility and disease and cancers and early death. Early death is all relative to how long you expect to live, relative to people around you and all the comps, right? The comparables in your area. But antigen antibody program is like a man and a woman. And you could say the man is antigen or the woman is antigen, and then the man is antibody, the woman is antigen. Because, yeah, it's always a war. It's always somebody in conflict, resisting each other. And so anything could be antigen to the body that has to develop an offspring to then develop a tolerance for that life form. And there must be an assimilation. And then it's who is going to replicate who more so, and who's going to overtake. I mean, it's always a war. Remember, this is all about accounting, expenditures, revenue streams, right? So antigen antibody programming not only gives you the different blood types, like blood type A, B positive, AB negative, and that's the Rh factors, but also for the propensity of infection, of course, fertility, and then disease, cancers, and then early death. And that even happens in families because mothers get cannibalized by their kids unless a mother learns how to put her boundaries down and feed herself to make up for what she lost in her child. And even when she's taking care of her child, because she's going to have to eat a whole lot more and release the demons a whole lot more so she can save herself from being cannibalized in body, mind, and spirit and financially by her offspring. And so women are born with a certain amount of eggs that deplete until she is about 50. That was programmed into you from more than 6,000 years ago. Those eggs are the representation of your ancestors and you at the time of conception. That's why some people hit the genetic lottery and they look like someone in the past, because when those eggs get fertilized by a person who has relatively similar genetics or background, this is why you might get a doppelganger. Okay? And so, yeah, I mean, I'm around 50. When things started going downhill for me, it was probably like way back when I was 30. When I first, or even, about 20, 30, shit. It was in 1998, I don't remember, 2000, 2017, about 30 is when things started going downhill for me. When I started getting the major, when my body was producing those eggs and it would take up so much from my body and cause disease. That was the PMDD. And so when women hits around 50, she goes through the change called menopause. This is when she must build up her body and release the excessive antigen antibody programming that doesn't cause her to drop an egg, but that antigen antibody programming is eating her alive. That's the aging process. Those are all your alchemists out there who may have menopause, who may be menopausal, but all of their remedies and their herbs and extracts are developing offspring that are basically ravaging the hell out of her and him. Because there's male alchemists out there who play with all the herbs and the extracts and the detoxes and the cannabis. The aging process is the unutilized offspring munching on mother and father. In men, when they start shooting blanks, it's because they have utilized up most of their sperm to fertilize an egg, and now it's just a body going through emotions. But the sperm is not very active. So they're shooting just of proteins of themselves. They're just releasing themselves into the universe. They're pixelating themselves when men have to go and shoot off all of their sperm, whether it's active or not. But some men can fertilize a baby even at 80. And men will also get a certain amount of active sperm throughout their life, which is why when you get circumcision, it causes damage and develops a sperm and, of course, sexuality. But if men could fertilize a baby even at 80 and 90 and die still fertile, but their body is ravaged. Because those little babies inside of them that are like little hydra sperm are also eating the parent, that father. And so this is why I'm staying away from the alchemist. And I'm very careful not to injure myself to cause fertility in my body. So if you get into an accident and you cause major damage to something like break an arm or something like that, you could drop an egg from that situation. Of course, getting diagnosed with a disease will cause fertility. But yes, accidents could cause fertility because you just altered your prototype. And of course, the instinct of that life form, which is you, is to then trigger the reproductive cycle to carry on the human race. And so, okay, let me read this again. Men were also given a certain amount of active sperm throughout their life, which is why when you get circumcision, it causes damage and develops sperm and, of course, aggressive sexuality. And that's why little boys are so aggressive. And that's why when they hit puberty, they become out of control. That's why I don't believe in circumcision, because it's damage to the penis. And it causes the men to be hypersexual. And of course, the images and their peer groups and the girls around them, oh gosh, and their mothers and their fathers sexualizing them at such a young age. And all, it's yeah. That's why you're seeing people getting pregnant at 15, 16. As soon as they hit puberty, it's bad, man. You trying to control that beast has caused so many wars and destruction in families. And so that's why I stay away from alchemists. I'm very careful not to injure myself to cause fertility in my body. So the last period I had dropping an egg was in June. And before that was February when my dog died. And then something very minimal in August or September. And I'm like, okay, something happened. I forget. It was very minimal. It was hardly anything. I wouldn't even count that as a period even. And so fertility derives from damage internally and externally, causing the body to drop an egg to represent that damage and that alteration at that moment in time. And when younger women do alcohol and drugs, injure herself, or take so many herbs, she is developing so many eggs, which could be monsters relative to the situation at the time. And that's why they want women to be younger and fertile, because infection, disease, and fertility does destroy the woman and the man. And so in a lower frequency environment, you could have people in their 80s have children if they're still viable as a mother and a carrier. In a high frequency environment, like such as this, all that replication and an egg development and infection will actually ravage a woman because she can't get ahead of it. Especially when she's been scared away from food and told to use herbs against her sickness and supplements and all that. So we were actually developed to be farmed, human farming. We were given a culture around family, and of course human experimentation was always in the mix ever since 6,000 years ago when Imhotep was doing his first surgery. I can only imagine what that was like. His first operation. The person had to be asleep, but then when did they wake up in the middle? I mean, I can only imagine being woken up and having like your whole inside splayed out. Holy shit. The powers that be needed to find the perfect human race, and they had to go through the several billions of people for many, many years. All right, for however many years. But I actually see you can get genius out of aggressive sexual reproduction, but you also can get sex offenders and serial killers. That was my last video. You can be a genius and or a sex offender, or you can be a genius sex offender. And then you look at Epstein's Black Book and who was invited to his island. And there are some pretty genius people that was invited to his island. What they did on there, well, that's speculative what they did on there. But you get really genius people from rampant reproduction. However, you're getting the innovation from them. You're getting their thoughts and their formulas and all of that. But then they die eventually, unless they become whole again and release those demons. And then they don't become sex offenders. So yeah, I'm trying to advocate that you can be a genius without being fertile, without being a sex offender, without being a bully. You could be an amazing, productive, balanced member of society without having to cannibalize anybody and take their resources and do damage to yourself. You could survive all the dis-ease out there. Okay? I mean, I go out there in public. I take on people's spittle because it's in the atmosphere. I have an immune system. I cough and sneeze and blow my nose. I haven't had a period yet since maybe August. I don't think I had one in September. I think it was August is when. Yeah, because it's like June, July, and August. And that was when July, August was when I was dealing with not as bad of a energy conversion. Because who knows how much antigen antibody programming I have that would cause infection from my genetic line from the last 49 years. I'll be 50 next year. And so, you know, I mean, I felt the energy yesterday, and the last few weeks I've been feeling those hives and had that bloodshot eye, and I had the fatigue and a little bit of the scratchy throat and the blowing of my nose and releasing those demons and the hunger. But nothing too painful. I had the arm pain, yes. I had the arm pain. And so after that arm pain, which was very painful, then I had like an awakening. That's when I talked about yesterday, the genius and the sex offender shit. Okay? And so every pain that you go through will give you way more intelligence and intellectual capability if you feed your mind correctly, and clarity of thought. And then you'll look at your life so differently, and you'll release the demons out of your life. Because there's people are harboring demons in their body, mind, and spirit, and in their life. They surround themselves by people who keep taking resources from them. and damaging them unless you figure out how to put boundaries down. Okay, so, but I actually see you can get genius out of aggressive sexual reproduction, but you also can get sex offenders and serial killers, which is Charles Manson, which is why you'll never see the Black Book or Epstein's list unless somebody gets out of line. But you don't need to see Epstein's book, because many of you who want to see the book have your own skeletons in your closet with your practices with younger and older women and older and younger men. And of course, you are manipulating and getting women in bed. These are for the men out there who are like, I gotta see Epstein's Black Book. Well, let's go see your black fucking book. Let's go see what you've done to manipulate a woman to get into bed. Let's see what kind of lies you told her to get her into bed. I don't even want to hear you say you want to see Epstein's book, because let's go look at your background, your closet, your skeletons in your closet. And so, of course, you're manipulating, you're getting women in bed and developing stories and techniques and even clubs around how do you get a woman in bed. Some of you have cheated on your girlfriends and boyfriends and offended sexual activity in that way. And it's probably awkward sentence. But what I'm trying to say is people have cheated on their husbands or wives. They've done horrific things. They've lied to a girl about, oh, I love you, just to get her in bed, or tell her, feed her a story about whatever. Okay, so I don't even want to hear how you're so high and mighty that you got to see Epstein's book, because I'll tell you, you don't have a clean background. There are so many men out there who think, oh yeah, they have nothing to hide. You have plenty to hide. It just wasn't recorded. But if we could record you, and that's why the system is recording everything, and they're giving you access to go and act out your proclivities if you think it's okay. And there you go. There's Instagram, the OnlyFans. That's for women and men too. And there's clubs, pickup artists. You know how many men out there develop situations or develop clubs around how to pick up women? I've been around them. I know who they are. I was in that world. Not that I was picking up women, but I was talking to people who develop techniques on how to manipulate women into bed. And there are also people that are like, we want to see Epstein's book. Okay. And so yes, the system has a method to the madness. But now you have the power to release the demons, those offspring, and they are formidable, and you give birth to yourself. And so you still get to keep the gifts that your parents and the system gave to you, but now you have to pay through the pain of release if you want to live to see the beautiful new world. But first, you have to see ugly, because we developed ugly in our world. Okay, so here's the thing. People can say 9/11 was staged, it was an inside job. You could say that what's going on over there in Israel is an inside job. Okay, whatever the fuck. At this point, it doesn't even matter. You could say that the Boston bombing was an inside job. You could say whatever the hell. You could say every single event that's had mass casualties is an inside job. Okay, fine. Whatever. And you can't prove it. And there's no way to prove it. Because you have the intentions and who knew what and when. But what those events were actually representing is what people would do anyways if given the opportunity. What they would do behind closed doors, what they would do in a little small town, in a barn, in a small town underground, or even publicly. They've done shit like that where people get harmed publicly. Back in the 1800s, 1860s, they did the Salem witch trials. People do that today even. They go and hunt humans on the internet. Do you realize things haven't really changed from way back when? 1700s, the 1800s, to even on the internet, and people are hunting someone that's different, that says something different. And so whatever you've seen out there as far as 9/11 or what's going on in Israel or what's going on anywhere else, it's what you've already hold in your body. And you hold those types of There's people who hold that type of hatred. You're seeing your fellow man act out what he would do if he had the allowance. And so I don't care how much you think something is staged. Your reaction to organic or synthetic. Remember, organic and synthetic. So people are like, oh my God, the V's are synthetic and my natural remedies are organic. Well, already your use of the V's or your use of your organic shit tells you how you would react to something of like a disease. You already tell the system how you would react to disease. And so what's going on Facebook and what's going on out there in other countries and even in your own country and how you react and what you say about that situation or what you say about disease and symptoms tells the system exactly who you are, what you will do in times of stress, and what you think about a culture, a person, a place, or thing, or even an animal. And so no matter what the system has done, whether it's organic or contrived, synthetic or organic, or whatever the hell you want to call it, your reaction tells them everything. How you react, what you do in reaction to, tells them everything. That's psychology 101. That's psychological operations. Develop a scenario to see who would react and who. That's psychological. I grew up with that shit. Remember why my sister and I didn't talk to each other for many years? Because we were in a scenario where she developed a situation that she wanted to see who was going to react to who and who's going to do what. So when you develop situations to see how people react, and then you know what you're dealing with. You know who's going to be strong, you know who's going to be weak, you know who's going to die faster because of how they're going to react to disease and cancer and shit like that. You know how to take out cultures by just giving them what they want. That's not dangerous. That is FDA approved that they already want anyways. When there's people out there that are religious and they're all against GMO and they have been radicalized against genetically modified because of all the psychological programming. And then you go like, well, we're going to genetically modify all your food. Lab created meat. We're going to call things differently over here. We're going to say it's not neotome or it's not aspartame. It's eating neotome and whatever. And all the people who are religious, Christian, whoever, are freaking the heck out. And so they're not going to eat anything in the food supply over there on the shelves in the stores. What are they going to do? They're going to eat only out of their garden. That's not enough nutrition. They eat only organic out of their garden, so they're going to starve themselves at their own hand. That's how fucking genius the system is. It's so remarkable. Your reactions to everything that's going on right now is telling the system how they can let you persecute yourself and annihilate yourself at your own hand. That's some pretty amazing stuff. And so when you stop reacting to what's going on out there and you realize that's the game that's being played, and there's going to be actual human casualties, and you'll never know if it's a crisis actor or if it's oh yeah, there's some real shit out there, because it takes real situations to really get people to wake up. Just like in the movies, sometimes they said that some of the actors actually had sex on film to make the scene more real. Okay? That's some pretty interesting stuff when you're hybridizing reality and fantasy together. And you'll never know if it's real or fake, unless they tell you. And even then, can you actually believe what they say? But I wouldn't put it past actors to make a scene more realistic if they actually do the deed on camera in front of you. Okay? So I don't care how much you think something is staged. Your reaction to organic or synthetic are your true colors. The system is seeing how you're reacting to however you want to characterize the actions out there, staged or not. The system only cares how you react, and you are telling them everything about who you are. I don't care how much proof in numerology or dates or how you think it's organic or synthetic. Again, I'm going to be redundant. Your reactions are telling the world everything about who you are, what you're made of, and you're telling the world how intolerant or tolerant you are. No matter what, your reactions to movies tell the world, movies or something that's actually on Facebook Reels or something else, tells the world exactly how you think, what you feel, what you think you're planning to do in retaliation. Your actions, your reactions are like an open book. Now go look at your Facebook. Look at all the people who are so intolerant, who are racist, intolerant, deficient. Now go look at your own Facebook and see how intolerant and deficient and racist you could be. And so the other day, when the themes of your dreams are so aligned to even the most rudimentary detail, the most obscure detail, you know you're on the path to alignment, because only you know the details of your life. And you can tell when your dreams are harbingers of doom or harbingers of hope. And I said, there was a very specific scenario yesterday. I dreamt about a girl that I used to know. And I didn't really know her, I just knew of her. But she's a real estate agent in Hawaii, and I used to go to school. She was an upperclassman. And I dreamt about her, and something about Hawaii, and then a food that we were eating that was Hawaiian. And so I know that seems kind of like, okay, but no, when everything in your dream is aligned down to the most obscure detail, it's not just like one scene melding into another scene and there's not really any rhyme or reason. There was a rhyme and reason in that specific dream. That's the type of alignment. And some people will get harbingers of doom, where they see a lot of death and destruction and they remember every single detail of it. And when you're remembering death and destruction in your dream, then you know you're fighting a battle overnight that maybe you won't wake up one day, because those demons that now you're seeing in your dreams with such clarity, they might be the ones to take you out the next morning, the next day. This is when you really have to start fighting hard for yourself and feeding yourself and releasing those demons, because those demons will destroy you. When people have those types of dreams, that's an indicator, that's a sign that you can't ignore. And so intolerance, no matter what it is, and no matter what it's in, does not discriminate. Everybody could agree upon that they are intolerant to something. Even I cannot tolerate too much death because it's destructive, or violence. Okay, I'm going to drink some coffee. And so there's a video depicting people cheering for Hamas in New York City. It's on my Facebook. And it really devastated that person who reported on it. So the guy was just like, dude, these are subhuman people who are cheering for the death of a bunch of Jews in Israel. And I'm just like, oh my God. And he was like wanting retribution, retaliation. And, you know, people someone that posted that, they had their own comments, people on their Facebook commenting. And I'm telling you, you know, when people do stuff like that, I wouldn't want to be around someone who has access to do that to me. I wouldn't even want to be next door to them. If someone next door to me hates me that much and they're lobbing grenades in my backyard, and I have to develop not only a thick fence, but also have guards around the clock, what the hell am I doing? Okay? And so, well, okay, fine. If you want to live there and you can live there, fine. And if they're going to get, if somebody, how do I say this? If you had the power to make their life miserable and you do it, and you have the guards and everything, and the thick fence line, and they're suffering from you, and then they're, you know, would they want to live next to you? And so when people choose to live next to each other, it's only the strong are going to survive. Okay? Only the strong. I just walk away from the war. But, I mean, here's the thing. In our civilized society, we just call the police if someone's doing that. And if it's that bad, then yeah, we can move. But, oh my God, if you ever have a neighbor that is targeting you, what the hell did you do? What the hell did they do? What the heck is going on that it becomes like that? Okay? And so there's a video depicting people cheering for Hamas, and it really devastated the person who reported on it. I'm sharing this so you can see how the hate manifests on both sides. You can't convert people from their beliefs. You can't make people like you who have every intent to hate you for the things that were done thousands and thousands of years ago, plus what was passed down from generation to generation. Even introducing change, people hate you for it and will never forgive you because you couldn't explain why that would satisfy them right off the bat. And even if you did explain it to them later as clearly as possible, they don't give a fucking shit. Remember, people have been damaged so much by the system, by their friends, by their family, by so many people, and you're just someone that represents the damage that was done to them. You represent whoever did the damage to them. And when people project the enemy onto whoever is different, you can't talk them out of that. There's no fucking way. So you cut off the communication. Okay? But you still can't convert them. But you walk the hell away. So that scenario of what those people were doing in Times Square cheering for Hamas, this scenario is no different than those who hated me. You know how many death threats that I got for talking about immortality and activating people's immune system? You know people that hated me? They developed groups against me. They called the police on me. They called the ASPCA. They called Interpol, they called the FBI, the CIA, Better Business Bureau. They wrote articles about me. Oh my God. They were laughing at me. They were jeering. They couldn't wait. Oh my God. You saw how ugly the human spirit can be in the J world if you were a recipient of those trolls who act no different than those guys out there in Times Square. When you are the recipient of such hatred and vitriol, you might actually change the way you do shit. You might actually look at life a little bit differently. You might have more tolerance for differences and understand and try to understand the other point of view if you are in that position. But some of you have the luxury to be so protected by your friends and your family and your associations. You'll never, ever stick your neck out, so you'll never understand. So you'll be the one to go and persecute someone until you become persecuted yourself, and then you realize the shoes on the other foot. It's not very comfortable being persecuted. But some people will die in the ignorance of not understanding what it's like to be someone on the receiving end of such hatred. This scenario that happened over there in Times Square is no different than those who hated me, those who hated Hispanics, those who hated the Irish people, those who hated the Asian people, those who hated the Indians or Native Americans. This scenario is no different than those who hate the Democrats and the Republicans or hate gay people or Christians or Muslims. Just replace the political, religious, and cultural beliefs system and you will get more of the same. This scenario in this video is an example of the human race today. So you're looking at yourself in the mirror. When you look at Times Square, and every person watching, those people in Times Square, it doesn't matter who you are. You're watching yourself laugh at someone that you think is different. That's why we're in a great reset. It's not just between the Jews and the Palestinians. It's not just between the Christians and the Jews. It's not just between the gay people and the straight people. It's not just between the black and the white. It's intolerant humans who can't handle each other. That's why the giants, or the Nephilim, were destroyed way back in the days of Noah. They were intolerant and destructive, and they cannibalized everything. Now look at how you behave. If you don't walk away from the war and you keep that war going, that's what you're going to get, is something like that in Times Square. And that's even in the anti-V world and the V world. And so this is more of the same of almost every person who takes a side. This is how they behave on Facebook, out in the streets, and even in their families. And so the last 12 years, I understood all sides of the argument. What it comes down to, I had the luxury to live in the world of those who were persecuted by those who didn't understand. So I learned about the Holocaust. I was raised Jewish. I was even converted. I understood the Holocaust, the pogroms. I watched movies around that, read books. It was just like, holy shit. I can't look at any anything World War II as far as the Holocaust or the concentration camps, because it's too devastating. It's too devastating. I had the luxury to be persecuted by people in the world that I live in who don't understand. So the last 7 years, I had the luxury to sit and being persecuted. Just to know and feel what it feels like to have everyone in the world hate you for an idea. And you didn't do anything to them because you weren't even in their presence. You just had an idea. Can you imagine what it's like to have an idea and have everybody in the world fucking hate you? Hate you with such deadly intention. Can you fucking imagine that? I had the luxury to be persecuted. I had the luxury to sit in that and feel what it feels like. Many people don't get that luxury. And so that they become the oppressors. They become the persecutors. Because they've never been persecuted their whole fucking life. They were too protected. And when you've been persecuted so horrifically by everyone around you, then you go and persecute other people. And then I fought back. And I played the games. Oh, I did. And I used the justice system to do it. And you can't annihilate them, right? You can't annihilate your opponent. You're not supposed to. That's not a civilized world, annihilating your opponent, like physically. You can try to spiritually annihilate them to show that you have a propensity that if given the opportunity, you would physically annihilate them if given the opportunity. But Facebook, people use words to spiritually annihilate people and hunt them and skin them. And they do that and even HANG them in their groups. Oh, go look at the groups out there that hunt people, that spiritually destroy them and skin them alive in some of these groups. Oh, they're even public groups. They're proud of it. They're teaching their kids how to hunt somebody, how to hunt a human and spiritually destroy them. And if given the opportunity, they would do it publicly in the Times Square, just like the Salem witch trials, just like in the 1860s. Oh, go look at those groups. They're out there. And they will show you what they would do through the words, through their intolerance. You had to see it. I had to live it. You have to see it. I had to live it. And when you are sitting in that stress of living that type of situation, you become way more fucking aware. But no, we have all these little ninnies out there that can't handle fucking stress, don't want to put their neck out for nothing. And so they destroy everything around them because they never sat in fucking stress their whole goddamn life. Mommy and daddy and everyone around them protected them. Like there's some kind of China doll. Fragile. Yeah, and as soon as the weather changes, you're going to freaking break. That's what they've done to you. Your friends and your family and all of your association made you so fragile you can't handle fucking change worth shit. So you can't annihilate them, but persecution cannot happen anymore in the future. So there must be a method to the madness and a strategy. Give people a choice to become tolerant and diversified. Make them accountable for their choices. Those who are intolerant in body, mind, and spirit will persecute themselves. And you're seeing it right now. People are persecuting themselves. They are eating so many antibiotics and surgeries and herbal remedies. Eventually, those little babies inside their body are going to ravage them. And then the next weather change, it's just going to be done. Nobody is doing anything to you that you haven't already done to yourself already. All right. So I just realized that Ukraine was the place where the Jewish pogroms, Stalin did to the Jews back then during the 1920s when they were doing ethnic cleansing back there in Russia, but it was like Ukraine. And so I have people on my Facebook, they're like, oh, we're wasting money sending money to Ukraine. Well, I'll tell you, the government has invested so much money in your education, invested so much money in your infrastructure, invested so much money in the telephones and the internet. And some people don't even bother to educate themselves or learn a different thought process or better themselves. Oh, but we have so many homeless. Some of them choose to be homeless. Others were experiments in the hospital system or they did so many drugs because of so much trauma in their family that they can't even hold a job down or stay in any one place, and so they'd rather live out there on the streets. But what about all the vets? There's services for the veterans. Maybe not a lot of them, but at this point, what are you going to do? So if there's already so many lost causes and you can only give so much to a person who can only receive so much, because you can't just force feed someone who's starving, they'll die. It has to be done incrementally. And does the system have the resources to nanny someone into life again, into tolerance, into innovation, into self-sufficiency? Do you think they have the resources to do that? And would you even accept that, given all of your backgrounds, your lifestyles, and your belief systems? No. So they're going to take the millions of dollars, $billion, and send it over to a place where they're desperate. They're desperate to live in a peaceful place. They're desperate to be something. They're desperate to earn their way into this world. They're desperate for a different life that people here in America, most people, not most, a lot of people take for granted. They feel entitled. They have absolutely no, some people absolutely have no appreciation for the life that they were given here in America. They expect it because their ancestors were here for like thousands of years, or maybe hundreds of years. Oh, my mom was here back in the 1800s. I don't want any immigrants coming here, so I deserve to be here and not that person. As they're just taking from the fucking system, doing nothing except to go get drunk and do drugs and entertain themselves, but do nothing to help anyone else as far as innovating society. Oh, maybe occasionally give to a charity so you absolve yourself, but you're not doing anything, so some people just have taken their position and just took it for granted. Didn't really make something themselves, really. And so their kids are going to learn the same thing. Oh yeah, just do drugs and alcohol and sex and just entertain and consume, and that's it. And so we have Americans here who don't want to do anything but just spend and consume and complain. So if we're sending money to Ukraine so they can save themselves, I think that's money well spent. We have people in America who choose to be homeless and choose not to lift themselves up by their own bootstraps. And they aren't even in a war-torn situation. They're just fucking whining. That's why we send money to Ukraine. So please, spare me your diatribe of how the government is wasting money. They already invested in you, and you squandered those opportunities away. The West has been given so many opportunities. Now they're giving people who are in desperate situations opportunities because they're desperate. Desperate people do desperate things, and they are thankful. And so then I wanted to show people that, there's the killing fields of Ukraine. Massacres of over 100,000 Jews between 1918 and 1921 paved the way for the Nazi Holocaust. Okay, and this was written by a guy named Jeffrey Bedlinger. And I think there's a link with that. This is why the world is divided the way it is. Genocide is choosing to destroy people, giving them no choice in the matter. And they had no choice. And those Jews went through the pogrom, like the Fiddler on the Roof. That was a movie about the Jewish pogroms in Ukraine or Russia. Fiddler on the Roof. And that was subtitled. I watched that when I was a kid at one of the congregation's events, because they had it in a movie theater somewhere. And so genocide is choosing to destroy people, giving them no choice in the matter. The system is giving you the choice to save yourself. People of the past were not given the choices. They were just slaughtered. If you're in the West Asia, Western Europe, the West, you were being given so many choices. And if you already believe in death, like literally if you already believe in death, like oncology, then there's going to be some mass sacrificial stuff going on. That you just hope that you're not one of them. And so, yeah, 9/11 was wow. Lahaina, wow. Yeah. I mean, shit, what happened back in, the 17 something, the Trail of Tears. Okay, yeah. But the system is looking for the most amazing fucking human. And if you choose not to evolve, or if you're so greedy, because you got to look at the World Trade Center was the symbol of greed and slavery and capitalism. I mean, I know it's like, God, Jillian, that's so like, But that's what I mean, people, they're all innocent. They weren't like, but that's the thing is, you got to understand the world that you live in. It's not what you think. Now you realize it's not what you think. It's not hearts and flowers and let's just spend and find a way to get around the system and take advantage of people and enslave women, enslave men, enslave animals. Oh my gosh, now the system is changing. Okay? And so, oh gosh. If you're so upset about Israel taking over Palestinian land, there is hatred on both sides. But somebody must have a homeland. If you're American and you're taking a side for Palestine, then give up your lands to the native before you. The Middle East, Saudi Arabia has so much land, and Israel only has a little bit of land in between everybody. Why can't the Palestinians live with people of like mind? And if they don't like people they're living with, why don't they move somewhere where they are welcome? If you truly want to have the argument that Israel was not there in 1947, but claimed to be there, part of the world in 1948, then maybe it's time for you to go back to where you came from because you weren't the original person on the land that you're on. Somebody paved the way for you. Do you really want to play that game? It's so easy to forget your situation, but you definitely have words to say about somebody else's situation. But no, I don't agree with you. And I'm not even taking sides when you think about it. I just know I'm not going back to Vietnam. But here in America, there's so many places to be where you're either welcome or not welcome. And I find that it's easier to be in certain places where I'm welcome, but I'm more welcome at home than anywhere else when you think about it. And so you go where you're welcome. But I don't have any connection to Vietnam, so I have a connection to here in America. But I still will go where I'm welcome. I'm not going to force myself to be in a place where I'm unwelcome. However, when you're dealing with someone, an opponent who already has so many allies and genetic allies, when you think about it, if I'm going to argue the case for the Jews in the West Bank, I guess, the Jews and the Palestinians share a lot of genetic similarities, but the only difference is cultural, religious, cultural. But they share a lot of genetic similarities. However, the Palestinians have a lot of connection with Lebanese, Armenian, Turkish. Okay? And so Armenia, Lebanon, Turkey, Iran is another genetic similarity somewhere. Why don't they take the Palestinians to that land, to those lands, and develop them and get them to a level of assimilation? And let Israel have that little area right there, because Israel, it seems that, I don't understand. See, that's the thing. Back in the Genesis, the Jews were slaves of Egypt. And then they go into the land of Canaan, and then everyone divides in their 12 tribes and all that stuff. But it seems that some cultures are more persecuted and oppressed than other cultures. And I couldn't tell you why. Is it jealousy? Is it might versus right? Is it, when someone is stronger, and so they're all about body, and then some might be smarter up here because they're not focusing so much on body, but they're focusing up here. Maybe that's the issue, is that those are all about brawn, and all about brawn and body and all that. Don't like that somebody is using it up here, and so then they're using their strength against somebody that's weaker. But then if the person's using it up here, they'll become stronger up here and strategize. Just like, this is what I remember. I remember somebody I was playing racquetball with, and they were playing against someone, and this person was smaller in stature, and the person they were playing with were always larger, and they were always people that were just very strong in hitting the ball. So how did this person win all the time? It wasn't through brute force or brute strength. You know how they won? Strategy. You had to develop a strategy where the big dude, couldn't go and dive to get that ball that barely skimmed the back wall and then skim the ground. And so if you can't beat somebody by brute force, you have to strategize. And that's kind of what's going on. It's people who are big and brawny and all like, oh, I'm fucking He-Man and all this shit. I'm going to go take over using, brute force. Can't do that because that's uncivilized. That's caveman mentality. And so a civilized society was developed by the man who knew how to use his brain, not his body. And there's jealousy around that. Oh, I can only imagine. Wow. Wow. And so that's why women have to be smarter than the men that they're with, so they don't get devoured by the men that they're with. And men have to understand they can't go and devour their wives like they do, feel entitled, and force them to have children and have massive amounts of crazy sex, damaging their body parts, and then they get cancer later because their body parts are so damaged from their husband. I love America, and somebody paved the way for me. I'm not going back to Vietnam. I have a home here. Somebody gave me a home here. Somebody invested in me here. I am more safe than not here in America. To all those who are narrow-minded and so hateful, you're not going back to wherever you came from originally. You know you're not. You won't pay for the sins of your father and mother because it was not you, it was them who paved the way for you. When you're in a melting pot called America or the United Kingdom or Canada or Australia or New Zealand, you'll make the best of your situation and find the right kind of people for you who accept you. Sharing is caring, and tolerance is necessary. Tolerance is necessary on both sides, and both sides are getting a type of karma. This is over there in the Middle East, because they are. Because they can't tolerate each other. If someone doesn't like me, I walk away. I don't make anyone like me. You see me walk away from people who don't like me, and they've walked away from me. I find people who show respect to me, and I stay away from people who don't. And so good friends make good neighbors. And so when I take it back to like the English, the Celtic people of early England were the majority of the population besides the other smaller ethnic groups in Great Britain. They existed like this from British Iron Age into the Middle Ages when it was overtaken by Germanic Anglo-Saxons. So even England has people who were originally from there. And then you got to figure out what's your lineage. But why would you even play that? Who cares? You're there. The earliest populations in America, roughly 10,000 years ago, are known as Paleo-Indians. Indigenous people of the Americas have been linked to Siberian populations by linguistic factors, the distribution of blood types, and in genetic composition as reflected by molecular data such as DNA. And so when it comes down to it, survival of the fittest. That's what everything comes down to. Survival of the fittest. If you don't understand Darwinism, you'll keep punching air. People do move around all the time, and they lay claims to land all the time, just like in your body. But the most organized and strategic society will win. The most intellectually logical and capable society will win. Might, M-I-T-E or M-I-G-H-T, is not always right. Sometimes you must be extremely strategic. And people's downfalls are their emotions. And so if you're not big and brawny, then you better have something up here to outwit your opponent. And everyone out there is an opponent because someone's always taking from somebody else. Some try to take more than their fair share. Okay? And so when you realize that, then you have to use your fucking brain to save yourself. And so Palestinians have a lot more in common with the Turks, the Armenians, the Lebanese, and Iranians than they do with Israelis. They have a lot more options than the Jewish people of Israel. I have a lot more options in America than I do in Vietnam. I was given the opportunity, but my parents to live here. And so the Israelis don't have a lot of options. They deserve a homeland near the area they came from. And there's a lot of cultural differences that must be dealt with. It's a lot deeper than than people think. Let them fight their war. All the different governments will take the sides they need to. But it all comes down to survival of the fittest. And so why are people in America who don't even look at their own background seem to be so intolerant? Ignorance and intolerance is always looking for someone to blame seems to be the going thing. War is all about blaming somebody else. When people get backed into a corner like I did, regardless, they have to fight it out, and I fought it out intellectually and through the court system. May the strongest survive and win. And so who are the Palestinians descended from? Ancient Canaanites. Archaeologic and genetic data support that both Jews and Palestinians came from the ancient Canaanites in the land of Canaan, right? Who extensively mixed with Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Anatolian people in ancient times. Thus, Palestinian-Jewish rivalry is based in cultural and religious, but not in genetic differences. Okay? So it's all cultural, it's belief systems. All right. Okay, I heard the sirens yesterday. The more pain I felt over the weekend releasing the demons, the smarter I was becoming. The power is in the pain. Eating food, releasing demons the way I have in my book. I am becoming stronger and smarter during this process. That's the future of humanity. You don't want to be weak in this society. You won't survive. You seriously must understand what's going on. So it's not about sheer brute strength that's going to have you win the wars in this society of intellectual strategy and psychological strategy. It's not pure brute strength. The bigger you are, the harder you'll fall. It's the strategy. The whole J world is about strategy and surviving your own internal immune system and surviving the environment and strategizing. It's not lifting weights. It's not doing yoga. It's not trying to look sexual and skinny for somebody. It's a strategy to survive your geological and your environmental factors. You have to adapt. Adaptation takes intellectual capability. Adaptation takes intelligence. And if you don't put any kind of onus on intelligence and intellectual capability, you'll think it's brute strength and violence is the only way you can win the wars. And nope. In a civilized society, it's not about the fucking caveman anymore. It is about intellectually capable people who know how to evolve and adapt and can articulate their position without spiritually destroying somebody else. And so when people believe in developing families and using antibiotics to silence their immune system from releasing the demons, those remedies and antibiotics fornicate with your body developing offspring, essentially developing Babylon, also known as diversity. Are you sure you understand what the whore of Babylon is? Are you sure you even understand the Bible as you interpret it? Those in glass houses shall not cast stones. You want to gain aggressive intellectual capability to not only save yourself, but to finally be at peace without rest in peace? You must look at your intentions. Not everything is what you think in your religion as well as politics. And so many Christians and Hebrews and people of different faith talk about the whore of Babylon and false religions, but they take all their antibiotics. They take all their herbal remedies. There's fornication going on in their body right there. Those offspring have been altered. Those are the demons. And then they turn into children who become a reflection of whatever demonic situation was happening at the time. And I'm not trying to be like negative, but some demons are nice. I mean, I was a nice little demon for a minute. Well, not really. I had to develop this persona the last 7 years. I mean, I was nice, yeah. But I knew I was an intellectual demon, and I knew that I was also a sex demon on some level because I was hot and I knew it. But I had to release those demons so I can finally get the gifts and release the curses and the spells. And that's kind of what's going on right now. People are not releasing the curses and the spells, and they have the gifts, yes, but the curses and the spells are overshadowing their gifts, and they're suffering. And they're developing more curses and spells as they keep compounding their issues with all the remedies and the surgeries. And so who's they? The people who talk about the whore of Babylon. That the empire of false religion has persecuted God's people, and that false religion has committed fornication with the world's political and commercial elements based on their interpretation of revelations. Okay. Oh, gosh. There's a lot here. All right. I am going to do this tomorrow. I'm just done. Okay? So about digital currency. Oh yeah, I'm done. So I will clip this off and put this for tomorrow. All right, so that's all I'm going to say right now because I'm just done talking. But what is my takeaway for today? Because that was a lot. It might isn't always right. What it is, violence isn't always right, but it's strategy. It's strategy. And so if you cannot outwit somebody physically, like with brute strength, then it's mind fucking people. And sometimes it needs to happen because people cannot seem to get out of their own way and they won't listen to reason, so you have to mind fuck them. It is what it is. But now that you know that there's a lot of the what's going on is about strategy and intellectual capability and intelligence and not so much brute strength, then you'll understand the mind fucks that are out there who want to try to mind fuck you. And you'll sidestep. And you won't react. And you'll be more tolerant to what's going on. And you'll understand. And you'll articulate why you understand. And you won't demonize anything. But you'll find ways to get out of harm's way. And look for the indicators. But everything that's going on right now is very necessary. It is so necessary. But you have the chance. If you're listening to me, right now you have a chance to sidestep all the bullshit. But you have to do the work. No one's going to save you. You have to save yourself. All right, bye.